How's it going, peeps? It is now time for the Raw results slash highlights and review video. I'll go over the results and the highlights in my opinion and give you guys my thoughts, my review on the show. So it kicks off with Hulk Hogan coming out to Big Pop. And pretty much his promo was, he was promoting the WWE Network. And he botched at one point where he said, "Tonight everything changes, or we make history tonight with the launch of the WWE Universe," instead of saying the WWE Network. Shortly afterwards, he kind of, he did a good save where he said, where he kind of corrected himself, but in a way that it seemed like he said it on purpose initially, saying WWE Universe instead of Network. But, yeah, and then he goes over, how people are going to be able to watch him, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the crowd cheers, and then he says The Rock, and the cheers were nowhere near as big as when he mentioned himself, or when he mentioned Stone Cold Steve Austin, which I thought was odd. But anyways, that was all, and then Michael Cole, Jerry the King Lawler, and JBL were promoting the network some more on the commentary table, and Jerry the King Lawler was demonstrating how he can go, search the years Hulk Hogan was competing, and then I think he searched for WrestleMania, or he searched for 1995, and then WrestleMania popped up where Hulk Hogan was competing, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. So that was, a small botch there. But anyways, after that, it was a rematch between Del Rio and Batista, or should I say Batista, since just like last night, the crowd was booing Batista. It was not even a mixed reaction, just like at the Chamber. It was all boos, and there was even a Batista sign, which Batista pointed to, and they were really acknowledging the boos on commentary. Same with Batista, when he went on the, when he was posing on the top turnbuckle, or the second turnbuckle, he was mocking the fans, pretending like, they're crying, and then throughout the matchup on commentary, they all mentioned, how Batista's getting booed, and Jerry the King Lawler actually talked about the reason why the fans are booing Batista. And he said, at the Rumble, when Batista came back, it was at the height of Daniel Bryan's popularity, and the fans wanted to see Daniel Bryan win the match, so when Batista won, they were mad, they were disappointed, because Daniel Bryan wasn't even in the match, and he didn't, of course, win the Rumble. So I was like, oh, that is exactly how we feel. I was surprised he actually, they went into detail about it, and they're really acknowledging the boos, because a lot of times they'll ignore it, or like sometimes in John Cena's case, when he's getting booed, they'll say, he evokes the most emotion out of the crowd instead of saying he's getting booed. But even Cena, he doesn't get 100% boos like this. He gets usually a mixed reaction. And Batista, in this case, he's not getting a mixed reaction. He's getting boos despite being a face. But anyways, in the shocker of the match, Del Rio actually beats Batista. I was expecting, for sure Batista beats Del Rio, but no. Towards the end, after Batista hits a spinebuster, Randy Orton comes out, and that distracts Batista, and then Del Rio rolls up Batista, gets the 3 count, and wins. I actually thought Batista maybe would kick out of that, but no. So, yeah, good win for Del Rio there. And then Randy on the microphone, he talks about how, the crowd doesn't like Batista, so now they're really acknowledging it, and he says he bets Batista is sorry he came back. And then Batista says he's wrong, and that he loves this business, and hey, the crowd, and what he loves is that, they have a voice, and if they cheer him, he cheers them back. If they boo, he boos them back, and that's called being real. And in the end, he says he's going to be the WWE World Heavyweight Champion, and to deal with it. He said deal with it a bunch of times since his return. I think he said it the first night, and then he said it at the Elimination Chamber. I'm not sure if he said it at the Rumble. Maybe, actually, probably. And, I think that, and yeah, tonight. But anyways, after that, it was Big E Langston versus Cesaro this time, and Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter were at ringside. And this was another great match involving Big E Langston and a member of the Real Americans. So props to all 3 of them. Last night's match was great. This one was great too. And you had, at some point, Big E Langston jumping to hit maybe his clothesline on and Cesaro or something. And Cesaro counters that, catches Big E kind of like in midair, and turns it into a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. And he also hit the uppercut where he threw Big E in the air and then hit the uppercut. He also hit the big swing on Big E. And at some point in the match, Big E was sent to the outside. And then on the outside, Jack Swagger tried to attack Big E. He charged him, Big E ducked, and then I think he hit him with a clothesline. And then he goes back in the ring. And shortly afterwards, Swagger comes back in the ring and locks on the Patriot lock on Big E, of course, causing a disqualification. And because of that, Big E wins the match by DQ. So then Cesaro's like, what the hell? And then he starts arguing a bit with Swagger. They didn't hit each other or anything, but you could tell Cesaro was mad at that. And then Big E comes in and attacks Swagger once he gets up. Cesaro sees that, so he knees Big E a couple times and then follows that up with the neutralizer. Now, when he hit the neutralizer, Big E kind of landed awkwardly. I'm not sure if he landed on, like on his head, or I'm not sure, but it looked like an awkward landing there. And yeah, that was it. Then after that, John Cena comes out to address the Wyatt family, to know why Bray Wyatt attacked him, this and that, calling them out. And just like last week, I think it was, he talks about how, the future of the company will have to go, the future superstars, if they want to make a name for themselves, they have to go through him. And then he calls out Bray Wyatt. At first, it seems like Bray Wyatt isn't going to come out, but then he comes out. We get the Bray Wyatt on the Titantron saying we're here, and then he makes his entrance. Then he goes on to talk about how John Cena lies to these people, how he's supposed to be this hero, and that how as long as, they're with him, or as long as he's there, everything's going to be alright, but he says, those are lies, and nothing's going to be alright, or whatever. And eventually John Cena just tells Bray Wyatt to, come down the ring, or actually dares him, or dares any one of them to come down the ring, and if any one of them slides under that bottom rope, he's going to start something with John Cena that he can't finish. So then Luke Harper slides down the bottom rope, and then Erick Rowan follows, as well as Bray Wyatt. They all attack John Cena. John Cena, sells his leg, and then they leave the ring. But then Erick Rowan is still on the apron, so he goes in, John Cena stops him, and then they go back in the ring, and they attack Cena some more. And then Bray Wyatt just says, follow the buzzards, and that was it for that. And then afterwards, they show John Cena being stretchered out, and then it was Christian versus Sheamus. They show how this match came about, where on the pre-show, on the Raw pre-show, Christian and Sheamus had an altercation, where Sheamus, called him out on pushing him after SmackDown, or on SmackDown after he beat him, and then Christian says, well, you kicked me on SmackDown too. And then Sheamus says that was an accident. And then Brad Maddox separates them and says that they've got a match tonight on Raw. So, the matchup, I thought it was a good match. And, nowadays, whenever I go into a Christian match, especially a match with Christian and another main eventer, I always go in thinking Christian's going to lose. And I was right. Christian lost here. He went for a top rope move. And Christian, when he goes for a top rope move, a lot of times he'll get hit with a finisher, and that's just what happened right here. Sheamus missed the first brogue kick, and then Christian right away went on the top turnbuckle, jumped, and I knew right there Sheamus was going to hit him with a brogue kick, and he did, covered him, and won the match. Good match, though. Following that match, they showed something that happened earlier, before the show, and that was Daniel Bryan, or actually Triple H and Stephanie McMahon arriving at the arena, Renee Young interviewing them in the parking lot about the WWE Network. And they talk about it, and then Daniel Bryan comes in and he's yelling at Triple H and telling him, what do I have to do? Every single time I'm against one of your A-plus players, I kick their ass, or I beat them up, and, every single time I get screwed over. What do I have to do? Do I have to fight you? I'll fight you at WrestleMania. And then Triple H laughs and says, WrestleMania. He says, if he'll try to find a spot for Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. And then, he leaves and laughs at, Daniel Bryan saying WrestleMania. Or because he thinks he's going to be, in the WrestleMania card. But anyways, after that, you see the Shield backstage, and they're talking to Ambrose, telling him, or asking him, where was he last night in the matchup? Because, like I said, he disappeared for a while. And then you see Ambrose telling them, I've explained this to you guys a bunch of times now, I'm tired of explaining myself, And then he says, if you guys don't want to believe me or trust me, then you know what, I'm out of here. And then he leaves. And then Seth Rollins looks at Roman Reigns, or he tells Reigns, I want to believe him, but, it's happened so many times. And then the Wyatt family come in. And it leads to Roman Reigns challenging Bray Wyatt to a one-on-one match. He says, just me and you one-on-one. You leave the Wyatt family, I'll leave the Hounds of Justice. And then Bray Wyatt accepts, so they have a match. And then after that segment, you see the panel of superstars, or panel of legends. That was, I think, on the pre-show. And then you get Daniel Bryan versus Kane. Kane comes out in his ring attire is basically, regular pants and a tank top and elbow pads. But anyways, in the matchup, Kane hit a choke slam. Daniel Bryan kicked out. Daniel Bryan tried to go for the yes lock twice, but he didn't get to lock it in. But in the end, Daniel Bryan hits the running knee for the 3 count and wins the match. After the match, he grabs the microphone and calls Triple H a coward, and how he confronted him, before the show, and Triple H just hid behind his wife's skirt, and he says, listen to these people and everybody, and, he says ever since Triple H, put on the suit, he hasn't been listening to the fans and what they've want, and they're all chanting yes, and he says, listen to these people, we've got an entire arena chanting yes, give them what they want, and pretty much he says he wants a match. He wants a match between Triple H, himself and Triple H, so Daniel Bryan versus Triple H at WrestleMania 30. After that was a Divas match, Summer Rae versus Emma, and Emma won the match. This was her in-ring debut on Raw. She won the matchup with the Emma Lock, I believe it's called, her submission hold, and Summer Rae taps out, so she wins. After the match, she runs towards Santino, jumps to hug him, but they both fall. Then following that, it's the New Age Outlaws versus the Usos in a rematch, because last night when they rolled up one of the Usos, I actually missed that, I didn't notice that, but Billy Gunn, grabbed the tights, and they rung the bell. The New Age Outlaws didn't get the time to do their usual, hyping up of the crowd before the match. So referee rings the bell, and then Road Dogg tells him, slow down there, we already know the outcome of this match, and before every match, they do their typical thing, hyping up the crowd. So they tell the Usos to respect their elders and leave the ring so they could do it. And then Road Dogg starts talking at the point where he says, the New Age Outlaws. He turns around and then he gets super kicked by one of the Usos. And keep in mind, the bell just rung, or it rang a couple minutes ago. And then the other Uso takes Billy Gunn out of the ring, hits a suicide dive, but it looks like he doesn't connect fully with it. So he kind of misses Billy, but he doesn't miss Billy Gunn necessarily, but he doesn't fully connect. But anyways, and then the Uso in the ring hits the body splash from the top turnbuckle onto Road Dogg, covers him, wins the match, so they beat the New Age Outlaws in a non-title match in about 2 minutes or less if you don't count the talking. Afterwards was Roman Reigns versus Bray Wyatt, and this matchup, it was a pretty slow-paced match, and then of course towards the end it starts picking up. But when Reigns was about to win the match, I think he was preparing for the Superman Punch, you get the Wyatt family signal, lights go off, and then Luke Harper and Erick Rowan appear on the ramp. We're right in front of the ring on the outside of it. And then you see Seth Rollins go inside the ring from the other side, and he hits a freaking flipping senton once again on both Erick Rowan and Luke Harper this time. But then, eventually they get up and they start double teaming Seth Rollins because Dean Ambrose is nowhere to be found. So it's 2-on-1 on the outside. Inside the ring, it's Bray Wyatt and Reigns. Now, eventually, Dean Ambrose actually comes out and he attacks Erick Rowan and Luke Harper. So now it's, kind of 3-on-3 or 2-on-2 on the outside while it's 1-on-1 inside the ring. And they take out Luke Harper and Erick Rowan, but then Ambrose gets in the ring and starts attacking Bray Wyatt, and that causes a disqualification. And then, all the Wyatts are in the ring, but the Shield take them all out, and the Shield stand tall inside the ring while the Wyatt family is right outside the ring looking on. And, so Dean Ambrose comes in for the save, but he costs Roman Reigns the match. After that, they show Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman backstage. Paul Heyman tells him to, this time, I guess, not hurt anyone, or, to go, I guess, the gentle route, something like that. Anyways, they go to the ring, and there's a table there with, like, a contract, and they talk about how, Brock Lesnar wants a WWE World Heavyweight Championship title shot, and he says, they sold the authority to have Batista and Randy have their match before WrestleMania, have them, end that match, and then Brock Lesnar challenges whoever has the championship at WrestleMania. And he goes on to talk about how they've given Brock this open contract where he can face whoever he wants at WrestleMania, except, of course, the championship, or the champion. And Paul Heyman talks about, what Brock Lesnar's all about, conquering things, goes over his t-shirt, eat, sleep, conquer, and repeat. Or is it eat, conquer, sleep, and repeat? I don't know. But anyways, talks about what Brock Lesnar has conquered over the years, and he want to conquer now the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And that since they're giving them this open contract, it's like, they get, in the WWE, they get whatever they want, except what they want the most. And then he says, to this open contract, we say no, thank you. And then the Undertaker interrupts. We hear the, the bell, or the gong, or whatever. And the Undertaker comes out. He's looking like, when he's making his entrance, he's looking like the Ministry Undertaker with the beard. And he gets in the ring, and then Brock Lesnar seems interested now, and he says, sign the damn contract if you want to have this match. So Brock Lesnar signs it, and then Paul Heyman also tells the Undertaker, to sign the contract, and then they can have Brock Lesnar versus the Undertaker at WrestleMania. And then Brock grabs the pen and kind of shoves it in Undertaker's chest, and doesn't stab him with it, but, just puts it on Taker's chest, and Taker grabs the pen. And then Brock Lesnar kind of flips the page where, Taker can sign, and he keeps his hand on the page, so Taker grabs the pen and stabs Brock Lesnar's hand, and then he chokeslams Brock Lesnar through the table, and looks at the WrestleMania sign, and the lights go out, Taker's music hits, and that was it. He took off his cap, and he's kind of like, he's got the bald look, but like a mini mohawk. Not a mohawk that sticks out, but, it's one part of his hair that, he hasn't buzzed, or he has, but not to the level of the rest of the hair. Anyways, never mind. So, yeah, show ends, of course, with Taker chokeslamming Brock Lesnar through the table, and our second match for WrestleMania 30 confirmed, which is Brock versus The Undertaker. So, highlights of the show. Big E versus Cesaro. That match was full of highlights. Displayed how strong Cesaro is, and also show that Big E, he can put on some really good matches. This is 2 nights in a row right now, 2 matches in a row that were really good against both of the Real Americans. And also the end there with Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker. Although when Brock Lesnar came out, I was like, oh, I hope, they add Brock Lesnar, because I can't see Daniel Bryan being involved in that triple threat at WrestleMania anymore. I think it's going to be Batista versus Randy, which, if it is Batista versus Randy come time for WrestleMania, what I'm interested the most in seeing in that match is just the reaction from the crowd, because they've been booing Batista, this entire time now. Well, the only night they didn't boo Batista was the night he returned, but after that, it was all boos. And they also announced that on SmackDown, the Animal will be unleashed, and he's gonna, really talk about how he feels, and how he feels about the crowd's reaction towards him. So I'm interested in seeing SmackDown now and seeing what Batista says. If it's not, or maybe he's just gonna say deal with it, and that's it. Because that's like all he's been saying the past couple of weeks, man. They should come out with a t-shirt for Batista net right now that just says deal with it, or eat, sleep, deal with it. Something like that. Anyways, what was I even saying before? Yeah, I'm interested in seeing the reaction for that match, if it's just gonna remain Randy versus Batista. And also, something else. I think the crowd was actually cheering for Randy when he was, making fun of Batista, or bashing Batista. Also, as I was saying a few moments ago, I was hoping maybe Brock Lesnar would be added to the Batista versus Randy match to make it a triple threat. But of course, now it is confirmed that it's going to be Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker. And yeah, that's about all I gotta say. So highlights, man, the Big E versus Cesaro match, that ending segment where The Undertaker returned. Also, Dean Ambrose coming in for the saving his partners, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna have a rematch, and in that rematch, Ambrose will turn on them. See, last night when Ambrose wasn't there for a while, I was like, I think this might play into the whole Shield breaking up storyline. Maybe Ambrose, just decided to ditch them. Anyways, that's pretty much all I gotta say. As far as the rating for tonight's Raw, I'd give it maybe a 7.5. You know what? 7.5 on 10. And now I'm looking forward to SmackDown to see what Batista has to say. And if, I don't know, Batista turns heel or something like that on SmackDown. I don't think so, but it's going to be interesting to see what he has to say there. Anyways, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, as always, you can click that like button down below. I'd really appreciate it. And with that said, I'm out, guys. See ya.